When you think of the first-person shooter genre, what usually comes to mind? A military setting, a bunch of guns that do different levels of damage but all kind of feel samey, cinematic storylines with twists and turns, all taking place in either modern times or in World War II, fast-paced multiplayer, except when you have that one dude that's camping in the corner, ruining the pace of the game. Yeah, that guy. This used to be my view of FPS games for such a long time. I always thought military shooters were the only type of shooters out there. Mind you, I didn't grow up with internet access and my family was kind of poor. So whenever I had the chance to buy a new game, I would have to pick the safe option and buy games from franchises I knew, like The Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, or in this case of FPS games, the newest Call of Duty. I couldn't have imagined that there were adrenaline-pumping, fast-paced, balls-to-the-walls hardcore shooters out there. Games that didn't focus too much on story or multiplayer. Some had them, of course, but the main focus was always on extremely satisfying gameplay. My perspective will forever be changed in 2019, when I discovered my favorite FPS game of all time, Doom from 2016. This was my first introduction to a boomer shooter, a series of games that aimed to imitate the feel of old 90s FPS games, where health didn't regenerate with time, but you had to find health pickups. Weapon ammunition was sometimes scarce, and you had to make every bullet count. Level design was intricate and maze-like, and you were given a wide variety of different feeling weapons, and shots fired from those weapons were projectile-based, not hit-scan based, including shots fired from enemies. This changes the feel of gameplay tremendously from the more modern FPS games, keeping you moving to avoid getting hit by projectiles, finding ammo and health, and making gameplay even more fast-paced and intense. My experience with Doom all those years ago is what inspired me to start the series today. I started my FPS journey with the, at the time, modern Call of Duty games. I appreciated and enjoyed the retro feel of Doom, so I became very interested in how this genre has evolved throughout the years, and I wanted to go back in time and experience the evolution. I was planning to do this on my own, honestly, but I decided it would be pretty fun to archive my experiences on the channel and to do my best to document each game for whoever's interested in these sorts of things. So the first video in this series will be about the precursors. Games leading up to the release of Wolfenstein 3D in 1992, they laid out the elements of the first-person shooter and that Wolfenstein itself would implement to create the basic blueprint for the genre. From there, I'll be going through the individual games, categorizing them in 3 major eras. I selected 60 games that I will be playing through for each of these, and I picked out the titles that range from influential to cult classics. Beginning with the classic era, this will start with Wolfenstein 3D. I know most people call this era of FPS games the golden era, but I decided to go with the classic era because the second era is what I decided to dub the golden era, just because I had no idea what else to call it, and this era will begin with the original Halo from 2001. Finally, the modern era, which will begin with Call of Duty Modern Warfare and end on Wolfenstein 2 The New Colossus, will wrap up these 3 distinct eras of FPS history. Do keep in mind, I was trying to maintain around 60 games per era, so there will be great games left out of the list, but I will be more than happy to cover any recommended games, and I'll make a whole separate video on those individual games. So in 2018, we experienced an FPS retro revival with the release of Dusk. For this reason, I actually decided to split the modern era in 2, calling the first part pre-retro revival, which are the games from the original Modern Warfare, and ending in Wolfenstein 2. The second part is the post-retro revival. This is where I finally start catching up to the current games being released, so they won't really be part of this series. I'll be making individual review videos for those games, and alongside those, I'll also be covering the actual retro throwback shooters, starting with Dusk and catching up to those current releasing titles. Each game I cover will have its own individual video. I'm gonna be going over any innovative changes to the genre, any interesting developer comments, and honestly, it's gonna be more of a review of the game, and it's gonna be going over the following categories: aesthetics and graphics for the time and how it holds up today, gameplay of course, weapon selection and variety, level design, soundtrack and sound design, story and lore if it has any, length of the game, importance and influence at the time of release and on the genre overall, and of course my personal enjoyment of the game. As for why I'm playing these games in order, simply, I wanted to experience what the players at the time would have been experiencing, going from the infancy of this genre all the way down to what we have today in modern times. The FPS genre is one of the biggest in the video game industry, making multiple millions of dollars yearly. It has continued to thrive since the early 90s. Whether you were there in its early infancy on PC with games like Doom, Quake, and Half-Life, introduced to the genre through console with Halo or Call of Duty, perhaps one of the free-to-play titles got you into the genre, or you've stumbled upon one of the many excellent retro throwback shooters being made by indie companies. Whatever the case may be, the genre's influence cannot be understated in its 30+ year history. I am very much looking forward to this journey. I encourage anyone who is into the FPS genre and are even a little intrigued to know how it developed and evolved to what we have today to check out the content I'll be putting out in the future. So I'll most likely be playing the games with keyboard and mouse, unless it's better to play with a controller. Like I would say GoldenEye or Halo, I'll be playing with a controller for sure. And also, I'm not like an expert on FPS games or anything like that. The only time I've ever beaten an FPS game on the hardest difficulty was with Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare's remastered version. And yeah, so I'll be playing through all of that on normal difficulty, like all the games. But I do want to go through them on the hardest difficulty. But I was thinking for that, if anything, if anyone is interested in seeing that, I would like to do that on stream. So please let me know down below if that is something you're interested in watching, because I'm so down to do it. But anyways, I appreciate you guys for watching. I'm gonna try to be getting the episodes up every 2 weeks. Sometimes it might take longer just due to life getting in the way. So if you want to stay tuned to the series, please subscribe, turn on the notification bells to get notified on future uploads. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, comment down below. I'm gonna interact with whoever is commenting. Other than that, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on future videos. Happy shooting!